Hello appraisers, this is Brandon with Spark for Appraisers, and in this Synapse Spotlight video, we're going to be covering exactly what Synapse will put into your digital work file. Now, first of all, you can control that using this gear icon that's in the green area next to export. That controls what will be exported, so I can click that, and I can turn on or off any document that I may or may not want. These first three are the ones that in general I think some appraisers are going to want to put into their appraisal report. And by the way, there's a whole video about this and how to load data into your appraisal report. So there will be a link in the description down below to that, so you can go watch that video if you're interested. But right now what we're talking about is the digital work file. So I'm going to turn on every document just so you can see. However, I don't necessarily encourage all of you to have every document turned on. One, some of these, if you're never going to use them, there's no reason to turn them on because one, it takes up more space in your storage, and two, it makes the export process take longer. So when you actually hit that export and you get the little spinning icon and you're waiting for it to download, the more documents you have, the longer it takes, and that applies especially to matched pairs. The matched pairs document and also images take the longest amount of time. The more you have turned on, the longer it'll take and the more storage it'll take up. And keep in mind, we do save your sessions in Synapse, so you can always go back into a session that you created a year ago, right into Synapse and go export again and turn on the settings how you want it for that particular time. So if, for example, you had matched pairs document turned off, you can go export later down the road and turn that on just to get it later. Okay, so now let's go ahead and get into it. I'm going to turn everything on and let's go ahead and export. So all you do is you click this export button right here at the top, give it some time to crunch everything, and there we go. All right, so now these three are the ones, again, that you may want to attach directly into your appraisal report, so we allow you to download those separately as a PDF. However, what we're talking about, again, is the work file, so I'm going to download that. And that does include all of these three as well. So you don't have to worry about missing anything. So when you download Workfile, you do get everything, including these three, and it goes into a little zip folder. So I can, and by the way, if you're using Chrome or Edge, it should appear down here at the bottom left. It is also putting that in your downloads folder. So even if you lose it here in the bottom left, it goes away. It's still in your downloads folder. I'm going to go ahead and click it to open it. All right, and that put it right here. So I've got my folder here, and now I've got a bunch of folders inside here. I can copy these out, do whatever I want with them. And I also have one PDF document that's not in a folder. So let's go ahead and talk about this one first. This one gets into detail on every appraisal method that Synapse can use, even some that it doesn't use. And it also talks about transactional adjustments and the proper way to handle those. So I'm going to go ahead and open it and just show it to you briefly. So basically it talks about transactional adjustments, references the appraisal of real estate, 14th Act or edition or higher actually, property rights, financing terms, conditions of sale, market conditions, how it handles those properly before it gets into actually calculating the property feature adjustment information. And now we get into what property feature adjustments are, what modeling is, how modeling works, and then we get into every different adjustment method that Synapse may use. Right now, it does not have allocation, but it may in the future. Group data, it does have. And by the way, it's just giving an explanation of how it works and then giving examples so you can run through the calculations yourself and make sure you understand how it works. Paired sales, how paired sales works, examples, what adjusted paired sales are. The sensitivity analysis method, again, an example of how those are calculated. Depreciated cost, the math behind that, example how it's calculated. The survey method, that's not something we're going to have in Synapse, but we are going to allow appraisers in the future to go in and type in the survey method, so it can be another method included in this work file based on your conversations with market participants. So that's that. And then simple regression. So basically, from here down now are all the different simple regression methods that Synapse can utilize. Ordinary least squares, all the formulas, what standard deviation is, R squared, what the R score is, all that kind of stuff is in here. Field Sen regression, examples of that, least absolute deviation, least median of squares, robust simple regression, and last modified quantile regression. And then after that, we get into error scores. And so you'll notice those error scores that are in Synapse. This is exactly how those are calculated with all the formulas down here below. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look back at our work file now. So again, this is our work file. Let's go ahead and get into the adjustments. So there is a PDF version and a Word version. Let's go ahead and open up the PDF one first. I do think this is the one many of you are going to actually be using in your appraisal reports. So it basically gives a rundown of what transactional adjustments were handled first, tells you the effective date you chose, the actual date you analyzed the data, how many data sets you used, and how many properties were in each data set. And then starting here, it tells you this feature that you analyzed, what you actually said your opinion of that adjustment was based on the data. It shows the range of results that you gave weight to within Synapse, and then all the different methods that were actually utilized in that. And then, of course, it has the same thing for lot size, everything else that you analyzed when you're in that session in Synapse. All right, what do we have next? Oh, and the Word document. So the Word document's a little bit different. This is if you happen to want to include tables of data. So for example, lot size. And by the way, there's a legend up here that says what these abbreviations mean. I don't think many of you are actually going to be using this document, but if you wanted to include a table of data into your appraisal report that said, okay, and by the way, you can, let me enable editing here. You can go through and expand that out. So if you want to include a table of data that says all the methods that and the results and what you gave weight on and what you didn't give weight to, you can just click this little arrow icon, it highlights it, and then you can right click and copy and then paste that table right into your appraisal report if you wanted to. So all that data is in here, and let's go ahead and move on to the next item. Okay, comments. So there's, again, both a PDF and a Word document. Now, in this case, we have the Word document because you may want to attach the PDF document right to your appraisal report, but some appraisers may not want to do that. They may just want the actual comments to go right into their addendum that they already use. So the Word document is better for that. And I'll explain that in a minute here. So basically, these are all the comments that Synapse created. And again, these are all customizable. So if they're too long or too short, you can make the comments longer, you can make them shorter. All that stuff is customizable. You can add your own custom comments if you want to. But anyways, this I think appraisers may want to attach as a page in their appraisal report, but also you can go ahead and get the Word document. So the reason we have this is because the PDF documents, while you can copy and paste directly out of a PDF, it just doesn't look as good in most form fillers because the font is different and the size of the font, the size of the words, all that is different. So if you use this Word document and you copy and paste out of this one, then it looks a lot nicer. You can just copy and paste directly into whatever addenda you want in your appraisal report, and it will look the way you're expecting it to. So you may want to use the Word document if you plan on doing copying and pasting rather than the PDF. All right, let's go ahead and get into what's next. Details. All right, so this one is a long one. Now, there is one document for every feature that you analyze. Let's just go ahead and do GLA. All right, so I'm going to try and cover this somewhat briefly, but there is a lot of information in here. Basically, this is showing you exactly what was used to calculate all the results for GLA and what methods the appraiser placed weight on when determining that the adjustment should be $65 per square foot. So first of all, you can see it says here, adjustment methods noted below with an asterisk were not given weight by the appraiser. So we'll see those as we get down here below. A total of 15 different methods, appraisal methods, were utilized to arrive at the opinion of $65 per square foot. A total of 43 analyses were used because while there were only 15 methods, there were multiple data sets. So 43 different analyses were actually relied upon. You can see there were 3 data sets, and here's the number of properties that were in each data set. Subsets, don't worry about that. Right now we don't allow subsets, but we may turn that on in the future. And then here we talk about transactional adjustments, how they were applied. For example, it says leasehold properties were removed from each data set. That's regarding property rights. These are all, again, things that are handled prior to crunching any numbers when it comes to paired sales, regression, all that kind of stuff. So it explains how that works, the market condition adjustments that were made, the formulas for those if you want to go and replicate it yourself. And then here it gets into the actual adjustment methods. So the very first one, true paired sales, the average, and again, there's also median. So for the average, we had $72. Here are the different error scores, the actual number of paired sales you had, the possible number of matched pairs, and then the same results for neighborhood. For data set 3, there were no matches, so there's no information. And then for median, we have the same information. And then we get into group data. Group data, we also have the error score, the result that you had, and then if you remember in group data, you can have between 1, 2, and 3 different analyses. So this is analysis 1, and it is the average. And you can see we have here analysis 2 and the average, and it has that information for all 3 of your data sets, competing, neighborhood, and sales grid. These are the names that the appraiser gives to the data set. So it's data set 1, 2, and 3, but then this name is all customizable by the appraiser, so these will look different for you. This is just the names I gave it for this particular session. And it gives the math like the average price of each group, the average feature of each group, how many properties were in each group, et cetera, et cetera. And then we get into what's after that, depreciated cost, all the different calculations involved in that. There's quite a bit because we take into account all your different settings, and just the final result being $66 here. And then sensitivity, again, for all 3 data sets. And then here we get into all the different types of regression. We've got ordinary least squares. It gives the result, the mean absolute error, the standard error of the mean absolute error, like we saw above, and then it also gives the actual trendline formula developed from that method of regression, what the R squared is, and the standard deviation. Again, there's other videos talking about this. I wouldn't place a whole lot of weight on the R squared or the standard deviation. They aren't necessarily super meaningful much of the time, but they're there nonetheless. And we have the other different types of regression: robust least squares, Thiel-Sen, least absolute deviation, least median of squares, robust least median of squares, and last, modified quantile regression. All right, so that's it for that document. That was a lot, but keep in mind, we have that same document repeated for every feature that you analyzed. And then here we have the matched pairs document. So this one, pretty self-explanatory. If I click on GLA matches, it will show me in a PDF form all the different matches for GLA regarding all 3 of my data sets. So for competing properties, it looks like I had 20 matches. There were 203 sales analyzed, and the median, and these are all the results down here on the right, and at the bottom, it shows the median of all those is 63, and the average of all those is 72. And in the future, we may also have a method where it'll remove outliers. I'm assuming 214 and 228 are probably outliers, as are maybe negative 33 and negative 16. So it'll remove outliers and recalculate the average and median. As of this moment, that's not in Synapse, but it will be there. And then we have the pairs for GLA from your dataset 2, which the appraiser called the neighborhood data set. There were, I think, 70 something, 73 in here, and the results. And data set 3 had no matches, so there's no other information in here. But anyways, so it just allows you to go in and look, okay, this MLS number was matched up with this MLS number right here, and I can see the price, the result, what GLA it had, what GLA. Now, if I was analyzing, if this was full baths, it would say this property had, let's say, 2 full baths, this had 1 full bath, and that's what would be here on these columns. All right, so that's it for that. And we also have it in a Word document, which I'm going to pull up real quick. Again, for those of you that may want to, in some circumstance, actually go in and put in a table of the matches in your report, you can just click this little icon right here. It highlights it, and then just copy, and you can paste that table right into your report if you want to. But keep in mind, this is all going to be retained in your digital work file. All right, what do we have next here? Methods. So this is a summary. Remember that very first document I showed you, it was a long breakdown with examples and the formulas for all the different methods. This is more of a layman's explanation, something you may want to include in your appraisal report, just to let the reader of your report know what all these different methods mean in kind of a short, brief explanation of each one. All right, so that's that. What else do we have? Settings. All right, this is the last one, and we do have this in PDF or Word form. And this is basically a breakdown of all the settings you had regarding everything that was utilized to actually calculate the information, things that might have affected the calculations. And so in this case, we have your paired sales settings. In order for something to be considered a match, the GLA had to be within 5%. That was your setting, the user of Synapse. Heating had to be an exact match, lot size within 5%, parking type had to be an exact match, et cetera, et cetera. Then we have all the group data settings that you utilize to calculate that. Cost data, again, all the settings utilized to calculate that. And then last, down here, we have dwelling cost is our provider for cost data. So we have all of their definitions for the different quality levels. So starting with the lowest quality for a structure, we have that. That's quality 1.0 through 1.9. This is kind of a layman's explanation of what that is, all the way up to their highest quality, which is 8.0, and that explanation. And then last, we have their quality explanations for a regular uncovered deck or patio, a covered patio area, an enclosed patio area, and a swimming pool, the different quality levels for that and what that means. All right, that is it. That is everything that we currently can load into your digital work file. Here is how the work file looks when you open it. It basically, you have a folder that's a zip folder called work file, and it'll be named based on the name of your session. So in this case, I named my session 3531 East Delta Avenue sample. So that is the name of the work file document that Synapse gives you to download. Of course, you can rename it once it's on your computer, and you can move it wherever you want to, but that's basically everything we load into the work file. All right, thanks everybody for watching.